Okay, back to this view again from part one, where we can see a few of our components: the reservoir bottle, radiator cap, and the radiator thermostat. Alright, when we're talking the next generation of cooling systems, that's they started to have 90, 92 degree thermostats. The later cars started to have 95 degree thermostats. Wow, they're a different kettle of fish, guys. You can't be proactive in one of these. It's very hard. You're going to be probably reactive at getting to it when it's already cooking. But we can minimise the damage if we know exactly what's going on. Alright, in this system, you want to make sure first of all that everything is working right. Just like I said in part one, how the system works: pushes the water out, sucks it back in. So you could check this on a regular basis at home before you take off in the morning. You could check your reservoir, make sure it's on the just above the low mark. But what if it isn't? Okay, what if it's sitting on the full mark? Well, straight away, you know you've got a problem with your radiator cap. It's hasn't returned the water back to your radiator. Pretty simple. So yeah, buy a new cap, throw this one away, because what's happened is the little check valve in here has failed, and it's actually stopping the water from going back into the radiator when there's suction on this side. What could also happen here is your bottom radiator hose could suck in, or your top hose could suck in. Because the cap has failed, it's created a partial vacuum inside your cooling system, and if there's any weakness in your hoses, they will collapse. Okay, I've had that on my bus. Unfortunately, the hose stayed collapsed, and I had a little bit of a problem with temperature being too high, because the bottom hose stayed collapsed, even though the pressure was relieved at the cap, because I discovered it early. However, usually, however, though, there's a wire coiled up inside the bottom radiator hose to stop that from happening in a lot of cars. But that's one thing you could check, make sure your hoses aren't collapsed. Alright, so we throw the radiator cap away when the reservoir bottle's full. The next scenario would be you came out in the morning and checked it, and the bottle is pretty close to empty or below the reservoir minimum mark. Straight away you've got a leak. Okay, that water's got to be going somewhere, and it's not coming out of the overflow of the bottle. It's definitely going back into your motor. So you've pushed all this water out. You know, you checked it the last time you looked, and it was full when it was hot. Okay, a couple of weeks later, now you're finding that it's low. Alright, so you've got a leak somewhere, and you're going to have to find it. So if you take your cap off, you'll probably find the radiator level will be low. Okay, simple as that. Obviously, what are you going to do? You're going to top it up. You're going to put water in back into your bottle up to the mid mark, and you're going to carry on your merry way and not worry about it. Yeah, some people do that. You know, we've got a busy lifestyle. You can't. The world doesn't stop when you're low on water. So that might get you through for the day. You'll come back and check it the next morning. Obviously, you would. If it's done the same thing again, it's low, and you're low, you've got a fairly substantial leak. If, however, you've still got water in the bottle, and you still take your radiator cap off in the morning to have a look, that should be full to the brim. All right, you know you've got a slow leak. All right, so maybe if you check it again in a week, you might find the bottle be low again. So slow leaks are a bit of a pain in the neck to try and find. You might be lucky and find it, but if you can't find it, you're going to have to get a mechanic to pressurise the system for you. Okay, they've got tools that they'll take the cap off, they'll put a device on, they'll pump it up, and they'll pump it up to the rating of your cap, generally 1 or 2 psi, even higher. So in my car it would be 13, in your car it could be a 20 psi cap if you've got a later model car. It'll get pumped up to about 22 psi, and if there's any leaks there, it'll be found. Alright, that's probably something you can't do yourself. Now, if you've got a leak, like I've said earlier, your radiator hose might not get up to the full pressure it should. because the pressure is being bled off by that leak. So you may not find it. And as same as before, you know, your usual spots you check: your water pump, make sure it's not leaking, your heater hoses, radiator hoses and clamps. All right. So you can be a little bit proactive by doing these checks on a regular basis and having a look around and just keeping on top of it and making sure everything's good. So what happens when things fail? You're driving along and your engine starts to overheat. Well, like I alluded to earlier, you haven't got much time. In fact, you've got no time, unfortunately. This radiator cap is what will save you. If it's in good condition, your water is not going to boil until it gets way up there, okay? And it could get way up there if you've got water in the system and you've got a flow problem, a cooling problem in your radiator, a thermostat that may be stuck shut or just partially open, not getting enough flow. These can add together to make your engine climb in temperature. And once again, if you're not running a gauge that tells you the actual temperature, you're relying totally on the stock standard gauge, which is probably a little bit iffy because you're not going to know exactly what the temperature is. That's why I'm a strong advocate for having a decent water temperature gauge in on your dash, so you know what's going on. Okay, so I've covered the heat soak thing before, and I've covered water boils at 100 degrees atmospheric pressure. Your 95 degree thermostat is now not controlling the temperature as well as it should. You've reached 100. You cannot take this cap off, okay? Do not take a radiator cap off once you reach 100 degrees Celsius. Even though you may be under pressure, you cannot release the pressure because that'll be instant vaporization. As soon as atmospheric pressure hits that water in the system, it'll just explode. Boof! Turns into instant steam. Wow! You might get some water come out that hasn't quite vaporized yet. By the time it's out here, it's vaporized. You could get covered. So same thing, you use that towel if you have to take your cap off, but I would strongly recommend you don't do that. I would sit back and wait, alright? If you're under pressure in the system, you've felt your hose and you've got strong pressure, then don't panic, okay? These cars were designed, not this car, but your car, if it's running a 20 psi cap and it's running a 95 degree thermostat, you've got a safety margin there. Because your thermo fans, you're more likely will have a thermo fan, it'll cut in at about 105 degrees Celsius, and that's providing, once again, that your cap is working. If your cap is not working, your thermo fan's not going to come on. So once again, I come back to the cap, okay? You must have a good cap in these systems. Your cap's broken, it's not holding the pressure it should. As long as it holds some pressure, if it can hold 3 or 4 psi, that might just save you. But if it's totally failed and holds no pressure whatsoever, chances are this rubber on the end of the cap has gone and it's not allowing the pressure to seal, or the spring. There's a pretty heavy spring in there, so usually it's that seal around the top of the lip that has failed. So yeah, we are relying very heavily on this radiator cap to be working in everything in the cooling system to work, and for it to not overheat. Now 105 degrees isn't overheating as long as it's under pressure, okay? In the old cars, yeah, look, we've already cooked the motor, more than likely at 105 if the radiator cap is not working. And it would be true for even these cars that if the cap's not working at all, once you've reached 100 degrees, you'll basically vaporized all your water, your temperature gauges will stop working and you won't even know you're cooking the motor. And it's, yeah, bye-bye. probably end up doing a head gasket or something like that, or crack the block or crack the head, major damage. That's what we want to avoid. So here I go again. Once again, this radiator cap needs to be working, guys. Really, really important in a higher temperature thermostat car, because without it, you'll just cook it. You're too close to the boiling point of water at atmospheric pressure. And that's why I keep harping on this, guys, because you're so close to the boiling point of water at atmospheric pressure. If your cap's not working, you're toast. Simple as that. So this one's a little bit iffy because you can't 100% guarantee that everything's working fine. Even if you do your checks and everything like that, this radiator cap may fail at any time. You just don't know. So it's always good when it's hot, occasionally lift your bonnet, make sure you've got pressure. Okay? Just keep checking that your pressure cap is actually working and holding pressure. Now, you'll know when it's holding a 20 psi, you won't be able to press the hose in at all. But if you can actually press the hose in quite easily, you're not maintaining much pressure at all, and your cap is starting to fail. Time to get another one real quick before you do that permanent damage. And like I've alluded to in the earlier part of this video, you know, you do all your normal checks, heater hoses, clamps and hoses, check your hoses aren't sucked in, all that sort of stuff. Listen for cracks in your hose. If you squeeze your hose, you can hear it cracking. That's just my cap. I thought it had I could hear a crack there. But yeah, when you squeeze your hoses and you can hear it crackle, replace that hose, alright? In point of actual fact, if one hose has got it, all the other hoses have too, just to varying degrees. So you could do the one hose. In my opinion, I'd do the lot. Okay guys, we're getting close to the end. Just a couple of more things I've got left, not much. And that is when you reach your, let's say 100 degrees, or let's say we're at 103 degrees in our late model car, what you might hear is a bit of a rumbling going on in your reservoir. Now all that is the water expansion from your system is bleeding a little bit of water off because the pressure is getting greater, because the water is getting hotter. So we've exceeded now that 100-degree point, where let's say we're on the, like I said, 103. You might hear a rumble here. All that is the water is vaporizing, okay? It's suddenly being released atmospheric pressure, and boom, just like that, it vaporizes into steam, and it boils down into the bottom of your reservoir, and that's why you get the bubbling effect and the noise. Absolutely nothing to worry about, okay? That's absolutely normal for that system. And I think I've mentioned it somewhere before, you've turned your engine off, due to heat soak, the water temperature will go up, and then you'll hear your thermostat cut in 20 or 30 seconds later. And that water temperature has risen to 105 degrees, and the ECU has instructed the thermostat to come in. And at the same time, you might hear the rumbling in your reservoir. Okay, perfectly normal. That's the way the car's designed to operate. Oh, do I want to say it again? Yeah, radiator cap. Okay, very important. It works. Okay, otherwise that's not going to happen. You'll hear the rumbling. It'll rumble real good once you reach 100 degrees with no pressure. Yeah, she'll turn to steam and rumble the arse out of this bottle. Okay, there is another system which is better than this system, which I haven't covered yet. I'll quickly cover that. And I'm sure it's recognisable to everyone that's got a late model car, because they started to switch over to a system like this where the pressure cap was on the bottle. And I don't think they call that a reservoir anymore. It is sort of, but it's just a tank. And you don't have to check anything except to make sure there's water in here all the time, because this is higher than the motor. The hose out of the bottom of the bottle goes into the radiator about halfway down, thereabouts. So it maintains full water all the time. So as long as there's water in here, there's water in there. If you've got a leak, this will run out. Easy as that. When it gets hot, it'll expand, come up to the top. So it'll do the same cycling thing that this used to do, but it doesn't have to draw the water back out and put it back into the system, because it's already in the system. Okay, so much better. I like that system. There's really nothing to worry about except to make sure that you've just got water in that bottle. Everything takes care of itself, and it makes it easy to diagnose, yeah, like I just said. There's water in here, there's water in there, you haven't got a leak. If it gets low, you got a leak, okay? Simple as that. Alright, so that's it on that one. So that one's a much better system to look after and diagnose. Very important, the cooling system, because it's expensive if the cooling system fails. Alright, so you want to keep an eye on that all the time. But my best advice is, if you haven't got the low water level sensor in your radiator, now this is pertaining to everyone I'm talking to here, early model, late model, I would get a decent gauge, okay? One that warns you what's going on, give you early warning. Alright guys, I'm going to cut it off here now. Hope I put some knowledge past you and it's helped you out.